Let me know when we're live.
Need that Lou music.
All right. I guess we're live. We got dealing with Lou's phone. Welcome to Lights Out with Lou Savarese, and I'm Jeff Michael and Grant Miles. Special guest Bob Spagnola here. How you doing? What's up, Bob?
Spag.
Spag. Is that the nickname?
With you.
So can we call you Spag? Can we say Spag?
Generally what they
Okay, good. All right. We've graduated to Spag now.
All right.
I was going to be polite and do Mr. Spagnola, but I can do Spag now.
Really show my age.
Well, welcome in to Lights Out with Lou Savarese. Like we said, we're sitting over here at Savarese Fight Fit, of course, with Lou, myself. Man, I'm excited about the show. I haven't been nervous in a show in a while, but you have talked so highly about Bob. I'm a little bit nervous about having Bob on the show.
We've had a long career, a long relationship. We've been friends forever. And I remember when he picked me up in 1986 in his Toyota Super Targa roof. I thought that was pretty pimp.
Really?
Yeah, yep. Remember maroon? You had a maroon Supra.
Yeah, I had that. A lot of Aggies crept up on me. That was a 86 and a half Targa Supra,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Lou. I saw Lou at the National Sports Festival that was hosted in Houston.
Yeah,
it was kind of like
a
Olympic-style event. They had teams from North, South, East, and West, and they all competed, and that's when I first...
Nice. All right, well, again, we're over here at Savarese Fight Fit, where, Lou, you've got two of these gyms. Tell us a little bit about what you do here at the gym.
Yeah, we have a lot of white-collar boxing here. We have sparring on Saturdays. A lot of the kids come in. It's a lot of guys... All our trainers are either current fighters or fighters that were fighters that are former fighters. We actually have a kid fighting. He's fighting Gabriel. He's from Brazil, and he's fighting this Sunday actually, on a UFC Fight Pass card. So.
Oh, he's on the Fight Pass. So
yes,
before the main card, he's fighting.
Yeah, he's fighting over at the Bayou Event Center just south of 610. He's going to be fighting. So we're excited.
Excellent. Well, again, we're excited to have Bob Spagnola here. You trained 8 world title holders. Is this correct?
No, I was. I'm
or managed. Sorry.
So no, and I like to say that I 6 kids that I had, made it all the way to the big show, but I worked with tons of great fighters over the years, and was thrilled with the association.
Who was your first batch of Olympians? Was that Tate?
84.
Yeah, 84.
Frank Tate, gold medalist, and that was the class that kind of got me started. And Frank's still he was from West Detroit and left Emmanuel Stewart in the Kronk gym to come down here and give us a chance. And he was a fabulous fighter, he's a great champion, and is a proud Houstonian. Still lives here and then his family here.
Then from '88 you had that was our group, and then you got
88.
myself, Todd Foster.
Yeah, Todd Foster was an Olympian, and
you're originally from New York or Jersey?
Yeah, suburban New York, across the river from Lou.
Lou was offended by that. Lou was like, no,
Lou,
come on, dude.
Shit, my bad.
They're pretty close to each other.
Boston. Fight word.
So you're originally from New York. And when did you move here? So we talked a little bit prior to the show, how you got your start in boxing, because you weren't previously, you were a boxer when you were young. Did you box in New York?
Yeah, no. I fought in the late '60s. We had CYO and PAL boxing, and '68 and '69. And when so that's kind of when I got started. Loved boxing my whole life.
Well, Bob was a competitive wrestler at Lehigh, and football too.
Competitive wrestler?
Yeah.
Oh, I was wrestled throughout high school and some in college, and played lacrosse. But lacrosse was a great game. But I
getting big down here now.
Was an athlete, but not the elite level.
What was your favorite out of all those that you've done, as far as all
boxing.
The sports? Boxing's your favorite, 100%.
My dreams and aspirations were always in boxing.
Yeah. I was going to ask you. I saw this earlier. I was going to ask you about it. Your card. Have you ever seen your trading card that you have?
Yeah, we used to have those. Yeah.
Do you have one?
Oh yeah, this is his training card.
No, I'm saying do you own one of your own?
Somebody sent me one from overseas, and so I kept it.
Lou, you got a card?
I do have a card.
Oh yeah,
yes,
Lou
I got 2 of them.
Yeah.
I have
KO and something else. And you talk about, I have a fan in Turkey. The dude, I'm not making this up. He's naming his kid after me.
What?
I'm not kidding. I'm
You got a fan like Lou? Is it Lou or like Savarese?
No, Lou. I think
That would
Lou.
be something, wouldn't it, if his name was Savarese?
That's a cool name.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
Lou.
I can't pronounce it.
I don't plan on having any more kids, but I'm not naming them Lou.
Yeah, someone named the kid Lou. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
After
if you
Lou
named
Savarese.
it, like so, a guy in Turkey.
Yeah.
Did he send you fan mail?
Yeah, he sent he on Instagram. He like every day he's sending me pictures I've never seen of myself. It's crazy. He sent one yesterday of me walking down the street in New York City. I've never seen a picture before. It's so cool.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
weird,
So, follow us on Lights Out with Lou Savarese. We're on every single one of the podcast channels, man. Wherever you get your podcast, just type in Lou Savarese or Lights Out with Lou Savarese. We're also on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch. We've got them all, man.
We're on
every
Twitch?
one of them. We are on
Yeah,
Twitch.
we are on Twitch.
I'm not down with Twitch.
Well, you are now.
Yeah.
I bet that guy in Turkey, he's
He
on the
knows.
Twitch account for sure.
I knew a couple guys that Twitches.
But
we'll go there later.
yeah, we're here with Bob Spagnola, man. We're gonna get into some crazy stories, I'm sure, between you and Bob. I mean, you guys go back years and years and years, decades. Since the '60s and '70s. You guys met in the '80s, and just before this, I mean, Bob was telling some incredible stories about how Golden Gloves got started. This guy, Reverend, what was his name?
Ray Martin.
Reverend Ray Martin.
Reverend Ray Martin, which was incredible. And the story, we'll get into that in a minute with him and Ali.
I believe his gym is still open, right, Bob? I think so. Over on Dowling Street.
They've been having some problems. Young Ray, his son, had taken over the gym, but the gym was when I moved down here in '79, the gym was at the corner of Dowling and Elgin, just east of the corner of Dowling and Elgin, just next to Emancipation Park and 3rd Ward. And Reverend Ray Martin was the fighting preacher from 3rd Ward. He was, as I told you the story of Rev insisted on, integrating the Golden Gloves in Texas. And, it was a tough spot for him, and they ended up, he had some representation or whatever. They didn't want him, they didn't want to integrate it, but they kind of insisted. So they matched him with and Rev was a coming heavyweight, a young kid, but there was a guy down here named Dave Ziglowitz who was a wrecking machine was from Buffalo, New York, moved down here to be with Hugh Bembo, was a famous old manager back in the day in Houston. And he moved Ziglowitz down here. Ziglowitz later fought Joe Frazier for the heavyweight championship of the world. He was a heck of a tough fighter, not tough enough for Joe Frazier, but he wrecked Reverend Ray Martin. And it was supposed to be a blind draw, but several people speculated, geez, Rev, he got put with the toughest guy in the tournament. And they kind of put him down because of that. But years later, Muhammad Ali was in town defending the heavyweight championship of the world, and it was, you can't have imagined the.
Was that with Cleveland Big Cat, or?
The first fight. The second was Ernie Terrell, but
what about cut and shoot? Didn't he fight Roy Harris? Oh no, Sonny Liston fought. Yeah,
Liston fought Harris, but Harris fought Patterson for the title and gave a real good account of himself. But Reverend Ray. They had a gym just like this. It was the downtown gym on Congress. You used to have to walk up the stairs on the outside of the building, and all the media, you can't have imagined how big it was. The fight was going to be at the Astrodome. It was just a huge international event, and Ali was beating up all the sparring partners. And he was told his guys, "Where's that guy? Where's that guy? Where's that guy?" And the next thing, they bring in Reverend Ray Martin, a inexperienced amateur, to spar with Ali. And the next thing, with all the media there, Ali gets dropped by Reverend Martin. And
legitimately?
In the gym down in Congress. And then Ali found out that some of the media hadn't been there, so he did it again. And
wow.
Literally made Reverend Ray Martin famous. The fighting preacher dropped Ali. Wow. And that's what built the PABA to the great position that it was in for years when Rev was healthy and taking care of
That's
things.
I mean,
it was a great story.
That goes to the character of Muhammad Ali,
Yeah.
and what a kind of a person he was to help other people out.
I got a crazy Ali story about a Houston legend, Mattress Mac. Mac and I used to tell stories all the time, but Mac had the best story. He was working at a country club or a gymnasium up in Dallas or Fort Worth, and and Ali was coming to do some sparring or whatever. And anyway, they had nobody to spar with him, so they had Mac actually spar with him. And
what?
Yeah, Mac sparred with him.
I'm gonna have to ask him this.
No,
I got him on my phone.
Yeah, and he said, and Mac, it was crazy. And Ali grabbed him and said, "Call me Ali held him in the clinch and said, "Call me a bad word, a derogatory term." And he said, "No, Max." And Ali said, "Do it." And he did it. Everybody was booing him, yelling at him, and it was really cool. One of my favorite stories.
Well,
That's awesome.
What's great addendum to what you're talking to on the Reverend Ray Martin story I was reading. Of course, it says on quotes that he knocked him down 3 times, and then he said he even promoted him at the point to where whenever Ali would come back into Houston, he would call out Reverend and basically say, you know, I'm going to get you back for what you did to me. And then even to a point where he said he claimed and he promised to send the good Reverend to heaven by 7 is what he would say.
Ray
So
never turned pro, did he, Bob?
No.
He wasn't pro. Yeah.
No, but he developed that gym over there, and you know, a lot of kids, and you're dealing with with some real at-risk situations, but
Right.
there was a lot of happy endings that came out of that gym and that program that Rev developed.
Well, awesome, man. I want to welcome in Ed, Joe Applewhite, Nancy's watching, Trisha, Luis, Gary, Salvador, all these people. Guido told me to tell you hello. Guido says hello every time. I feel like I know
he says
Guido.
more than hello.
Yeah, Guido's a good
Let's
dude.
leave it at hello.
Joe Applewhite said his mom's first name was Lou, so I don't like there you go.
And Joe also said that while he's not here. So
Yeah, true story. We're over here. Welcome into Lights Out with Lou Savarese. We're welcoming in a special guest, Bob Spagnola, and we're just getting started. We're only 12 minutes in. Already heard stories about Muhammad Ali, Reverend Ray Martin, Golden Glove stuff. I wanted to ask you real quick about some current fighters and about the fight that just happened this past weekend. Canelo dropped the guy in the 3rd round, which was, I think, pretty much assumed, right? Like that's what was going to happen. The guy he fought before that, I forgot who Canelo fought, but he had called out and said, "Listen, if the guy doesn't drop him in the 2nd round, then why are we having this fight?"
Yeah.
You know, and so because it's all a setup fight for Billy Joe Saunders. And he did. Canelo, a lot of people were saying that Canelo was using almost like a Mayweather tactic, though. Running, ducking, and dodging, just running around the ring, sort of like Mayweather does. What is your thought process on Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders, first of all? And is he starting to get sort of like a Mayweather where his defense is going to have to start to come into play?
Well, I mean, the answer to the second question, I don't think so at all. Listen, Billy Joe, styles make fights, we say, and Billy Joe Sanders is the perfect kind of style to make. I mean, it's a great matchup because Canelo is generally a very aggressive, good body puncher, cuts off the ring well, and Saunders is that beautiful lateral movement. And as long as he can keep that lateral movement up, he'll give Canelo some moments. I don't think he'll be up to the task to maintain that for 12 rounds, but he's a real good fighter. He's very elusive, and I also don't think he's got the pop to hold Canelo off him. And if you don't have that, and you got a guy just running downhill at you like that, that's a very difficult
I think Canelo's
task.
going to break him down in the later rounds. I think he's going to get to him. But one of the things you said about the defense, I don't think. I mean, to me, and I'll see what Bob thinks, but Mayweather's got to be maybe top 10 I've ever seen on defense. And I don't think Canelo. I mean, he's great. Canelo's getting better every fight, but defense to me isn't his best thing. I mean, it's his power, his stamina, but not defense. That's really not.
Well, a lot of people don't give
or elusiveness. Sorry.
Well, they don't give Mayweather credit, right? So I compare Mayweather to like Michael Jordan in Jordan's later years, where he developed a fadeaway. Mayweather, if you go back to his early fights, he was knocking people out. He was a very aggressive fighter and very, strong and in the ring and wanted to fight.
And he was fighting smaller fighters, which he was a smaller fighter. So he wasn't. He started out at 130 pounds. So when you add 25 pounds to that, usually the pop that you had at 30, 35 wasn't necessarily there at 45.
Bob used to manage, his uncle, Roger Mayweather, was down here. I met him down here in, I met him in 86 down here.
So
I didn't really manage Roger, but I helped him.
Why was he down here?
He was actually on the Lamb from Vegas. He got jammed up out there, and we brought him down here as oftentimes we did.
Did you meet Floyd in his younger years?
No. I may have met him one time. I knew the father. The father fought for us, Floyd Sr. I'm always, and Lou knows, I'm old school, and I want guys to respect each other in this. If you sit up there and you talk about, he's a bum, he's a bitch, I'm going to do this to him. And if you do beat the guy, what did you do? You beat somebody that you've already demeaned. And so I love guys that build each other up, and then, because 90% of it, after the fact, you see great sportsmanship in boxing, regardless of the negative elements leading in, but we had a fight at the Tropicana Hotel in Atlantic City. Marlon Starling was a hell of a fighter from Hartford, Connecticut. Moochie, he went on to knock out Mark Breland for the welterweight championship. He fought Floyd Mayweather Sr., and Floyd Mayweather Sr. was a little hobbled from a recent gunshot wound. Compliments of a member of the immediate family. Jeez. So they, listen, but the two of these guys going after each other at the weigh-in and everything, and the build-up to the fight, it wasn't my, I loved guys respecting each other and building each other up, but that wasn't their style.
The antithesis of guys respecting each other. When I first came down there, Mayweather was sparring with Camacho, and Mayweather made believe he got something in his eye, and then just stole Camacho, knocked him down, and that was crazy. They started fighting with each other. It was nuts.
Who was he fighting when he did that? Remember, they stopped the fight, right? And the guy reached out to shake his hand right in the middle of the ring, and then Mayweather just stole it.
That was
Floyd Jr.
That was Jr.
Yeah, I'm talking about Jr.
Against,
that was fair. I mean, to me,
that kid was from Garden City, Kansas.
You're taught
was that fair?
You're taught to defend yourself at all times. I mean, the guy, that was stupid for the guy to put his hands
You know what I'm
down.
talking about? Yeah,
I remember.
He was looking for a place to go. He was smiling from ear to ear when that thing was over with, because Mayweather was, he purposely attempted to headbutt Floyd.
Yeah.
And
he did, didn't he? He did in the corner. Yeah. That's what kind of started the whole brawl that they did. But yeah, you watched that. I'm glad you said it, because just from somebody that hasn't been in the business like you guys have, when I watched that, and especially when I watched it in slow motion, I thought that was cheap on Floyd's part. But you say no.
No. I mean, that's it's part of, to me, it's part of the business. The guy knows, protect yourself at all times, especially coming out of a clinch too. You want to, keep your hands up or whatever. And I didn't have a problem with it. I would have did the same thing if I was him. So
okay. All right.
And that ended the fight right then, because he caught him twice, like bam, bam, and the guy was, just knocked him out and whatever. And some people say it was dirty because of, some people don't like the way Mayweather fights. I tend, going back to what I said about Jordan, Jordan developed a fadeaway. I think Floyd developed his defense. He's so hard to hit, and I think that's an art. That's a craft in itself, and that's part of boxing.
It's the sweet science, that hit and not get hit, and Floyd's father, Roger Mayweather, the one that spent quite a bit of time with us down here, was a vicious right hand puncher and a great aggressive offensive fighter. And the father, Floyd Sr., was a defensive fighter, so and he didn't have a big punch or anything, so he didn't make for great fights.
They had another brother too. Remember Jeff?
Jeff was down here a bunch. He was a beautiful kid. He trains fighters too.
And is there a fighter between the two of y'all? Y'all don't know? Like everybody's like, oh yeah, I remember so and so. I'm like, all right. So
is that what it is? Is the boxing community really small?
Very small.
Yes,
very small, and we all know each other, and
now I know Bob would agree, but it's getting global now. I mean, a lot of Eastern Europeans. There's a lot of, even we have some Cuban fighters that are coming over here. When we were, Cubans weren't fighting over here. It happened when Bob and I was fighting, and they came over. Remember, Lou Savarese brought them all over. All the Cuban guys come over.
The Russians.
Yeah, the Russians. The Russians are coming. That's right. Yeah, that was their.
Falsigno had that, because back in the day, the highest rated television shows in amateur boxing and covered by ABC's Wide World of Sports was the USA against Russia. And it was, it was our kids against their professional men. But it got huge ratings because it was literally us against them in a battle.
Yeah.
And this is during the Cold War.
Yeah, I was
and
gonna say this,
so this Lou Savarese was a promoter in New York, but they thought, God, these Russians are going to be so popular, they're going to love them over here, and so they signed up all these Russians. But listen, they're not us, and it'd just be like if you went and watched, pro hockey in the Soviet Union, you're not going to see a bunch of kids from Wisconsin,
right?
And and people, so they literally boxing and HBO was kind of the cornerstone of it. They took all the money that could have been spent on young American prospects, developing them, and they spent it on these Russians. And the Russians didn't draw flies. They didn't, the Klitschko brothers were great fighters, but they didn't mean anything over here. And so HBO spent tens of millions of dollars on these guys that literally people didn't even know there were two of them.
Right.
Klitschko, Vasily.
It took me a while to figure out there were two of them, honestly.
And take nothing from them. They're great sportsmen and great athletes, but, just like I said, here, to me, if you're going to sell something on American television, even though the global markets and all that stuff, you're gonna sell what they're buying. American audiences, if it's a Puerto Ricano or a Mexicano or a immigrant with millions of people here to come and support them, just like the Irish and the Italians and the Jews before them supporting their own fighters. That's great stuff. But then you take somebody, and no matter how skilled he is, and you put him in that spot, and then you use American fighters as his victims. That's what they did, and they spent all this money, and then they turned around and did it with Triple G. I mean, he's a great Glavokin. They had to make up a acronym for him. They couldn't even pretend to call his name. So and people weren't coming to pay to see him, and that's really right at the same time MMA's making great strides. This globalization in boxing, it really hurt us here, because just think of an analogy of a sport, any other sport, and you're going to take that and you're going to go over to wherever and give them a winner from a different place. It's all about developing heroes at home. That's what boxing's about, as far as
one of my greatest moments in boxing was gratuitous of Klitschko, because I was at the when Klitschko fought Jamil McCline in Vegas, and this beautiful young lady thought I was Klitschko, and she came up to me and asked me, no kidding, asked me to sign her breast. And I'm not kidding. But just so I signed her breast. I didn't know how to spell it, but I did it anyway. So.
What did you do? Just scribble?
I just scribbled.
You just did Klitschko?
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I'm sure you didn't make it look like anything. You just kind of scribbled.
Yeah, that's what my signature looks like anyway. So.
Hey, I want to welcome everybody watching on Facebook Live. Appreciate you guys and YouTube and everything. We're sitting here at Savarese Fight Fit with Lou Savarese, special guest Bob Spagnola. Justin Wright says, "What's up, fellas? I grew up in Greenwood Lake. Yeah, Greenwood Lake, idolizing Lou at the start of the sport. Thought it was the coolest thing knowing a professional boxer in town. Still have an autographed photo of me and Lou when he did a sparring session at Sterling in Greenwood Lake."
Yeah, I did a lot of sparring sessions at Sterling. Some were sanctioned, and I did some before then that weren't sanctioned. We had a few.
So that's cool, man. I appreciate you watching, Justin, and thank you very much. Got another question. We'll try to get to all of them. I see you guys watching, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. I know you have some questions for Bob as well, Grant. So
yeah, so let's talk about. I was going to ask this earlier when you started talking about it. So what brought you down to Houston? I know then eventually you get involved with Miss Abercrombie and the Houston Boxing Association. How did that whole relationship come together? You coming down here and then getting involved with that?
Listen, I was just graduated from Lehigh University. I had my accounting degree. It was 1978, 79. That where I lived in the Hudson Valley, IBM was like the best employer up there. Nobody was hiring. It was terrible. The interest rates were like 7%.
Jeez.
It was really dead up there.
Yeah.
But mostly I got dumped by my supposed betrothed, and thank God I came to Texas, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody, I was born in New York, but I got to Texas as fast as I could.
Absolutely.
But I came down here. I didn't know a soul. I had some extended friends that I met, and but I was up at night. I had a lot of anxiety. It was a tough time in my life, and there was a commercial that came on, PABA, the Progressive Boxing Association. It was like one of these 3:00 in the morning public service announcements. So that's when I found out about the gym. And plus, at that time, people were like shooting each other down here. They were, somebody beeped the horn.
It's this weekend too. So nothing's changed as far as that part of Houston.
But it was, I knew I was in a bad place, and if I went to a gym and worked out and took some pain, it would help me.
So you were in your 20s.
Yes.
Were you boxing at that time?
Well, I did. I came down here and I fought probably 20, 25 times, Golden Gloves, and the best I ever did was I won the regional AAU in I think 1980. So which wasn't a huge accomplishment, but it's as far as I ever got in open competition. Yeah. And but in the meantime, you meet people. The several kids at the gym that I were at were prospects, and I was a mentor of mine was Willie Savannah. He was a guy that worked at the Southern Pacific Railroad. He had a small stable of fighters. My coach left the PABA to go to his stable, so I went with him. So then I was fighting
Willie
for
was
Savannah.
a fixture down here for years in boxing. He was had a gym and worked with Mr. Abercrombie for a while. Now he had his own gym for years. He just passed, I think, maybe a year and a half
Dempsey
ago.
Savannah. Yeah, Willie was a character, and we worked together. He had Ronnie Shields, who's one of the top trainers in boxing, was my stablemate, and Ronnie I used to do their taxes. They worked as meter readers for the city. Savannah got him a job.
Like water meters or electric meters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And running from dogs and stuff, but we do their income tax return with a Schedule C for their boxing, the little money they were making, and that's kind of how I began to understand. We were at a press conference for Larry Holmes and Tex Cobb. Randy Cobb ended up being a friend of ours. There's a crazy kid from Orange, Texas. Was a heck of it. Ended up being in Hollywood and making.
You guys
some
remember
movies.
Tex Cobb?
Yeah.
Yeah, he took a beat.
He was a character.
Yeah.
Gary Saluzzi says, ask Bob if he remembers potato pie.
Oh,
He just said, yeah. And then Jarrell Bulwer says, Bob used to manage my dad, Vince Bulwer, for HBA. So he says hello. Thank you guys for watching and listening in.
Vince could fight, and Vince really good looking dude too.
Yeah, Vince was a special kid, as was his whole family. His wife Gina and the boys, Jarrell, little Bo. I mean, we watched those kids grow up, and they were.
That's got to be a cool feeling when you're in a gym and you're boxing, and if you're passionate about it and you train these guys, and especially with Lou too. Now you have two gyms here, and watching them come up, and you get to know them personally and their families.
We all lived in the same building too. I mean, we all lived in a building right behind Carrabba's on Kirby and Richton, right across the street from
the original Carrabba's.
Yeah.
Man, I love that place.
That's where we lived for a long time.
Yeah.
I got a story about Carrabba's, but I don't want to get in trouble. I might not be able to eat there anymore. we'll save that, I guess. But welcome into Lights Out with Lou Savarese. We're just getting started here. You got any more questions for? I mean, there's a ton of them.
I mean, I have a lot of questions, but mostly about kind of your start with Abercrombie. Like, how did you get involved with her, and then starting this and kind of growing your stable of boxers that you had?
Right. Well, I was with Savannah, and I was learning the business, and I met Josephine. I worked for Pennzoil at the time, and there was they had a suite at the actually I'm trying to remember, but they had a suite at the Summit. The Summit was the place where the basketball team
Love
played.
the Summit.
And
Church.
Came down here, didn't know anybody, so because the people that I worked had some good tickets, I used to go to the games a lot, got to know the guys. Well, then they March, what the heck was the date? It was March of '82. Larry Holmes fought Jerry Coon, so I was going to be at the Summit, on the closed circuit, and so I brought a friend, and we got up there, and we were there early, but the place was like oversold to the max. And, the suites held like a dozen people, and there were 20 people in there, but we were all bunched in there. And But then, like right before the main event, and I'm trying to remember who, but we had guys on the undercard, and I was handicapping the fights and explaining to everybody what was going to happen, and so we were having a lot of fun. And then, like right before the main event started, there's a knock on the door, and there's 3 people there, 2 ladies and a gentleman, and I just could tell by the way they were dressed that they weren't like crashing the party like the dozen other extras that we had in there. So I said, look, please come and take our seats here in the front, my friend and ours. And the 2 women were, oh, no, we could never. I said, please. So, and we kneeled down, and it was Josephine and a friend of hers, and they were big fight fans. So we sat there and talked and watched the fights and, met. And, she asked me a ton about boxing as we were visiting, and I was explaining it to her. And later she said, oh, I'd love to go to the fights. I'm a big fight fan. She told us how her parents had gone by train to New York to see Louis Schmeling, I believe it was. And she was, her dad was excited about it, and she was a real daddy's girl. But anyway, that's how we met, and I introduced her to Savannah, who was, my mentor that had the stable of fighters in the gym, and that's kind of how we first got started. And she put together a group of people and, backed us, and, that was 82. By 84, we were, going to the Olympics trying to sign fighters.
Now, there's a famous story that I guess Lou told us with Mike Tyson. And whether you were talking to Tyson or whatever, and, that knew Bob, and he's like, oh, what did he say? Bob's still in the game, or hadn't Bob gotten fucked over enough, or whatever? Like,
no, Tyson was down here.
Oh,
Tyson was down here, and I think Tyson and Holyfield, they were at the ranch. They were going to fight, and Holyfield stood up to him, and people said that was one of the reasons that. Tyson was really never wanted to fight Holyfield. There was a rumor at the ranch that over a pool game or something. I don't know if that's true, but she had a ranch in Gonzales.
No,
Texas.
yeah, we had she had
Tyson was
a
down there
7,000 acre ranch out in Gonzales, Texas, where we took the coach of the Olympic team. Pat Nappy was a wonderful man and a great mentor. And he wanted to sequester the team, get them away from the media, get them away from everything. Back then being an Olympian was a big deal. And we had a heck of an Olympic team. But she had a ranch. We took this old clay brick barn and converted it into a gym. They had some old ranch hands' houses. They converted them for quarters, and we took like a team of 30 kids out there, 30 kids and coaches, for to get ready. And a lot of the other managers who had already signed these kids to contracts, quietly, there was, oh, this isn't right. That millionaire lady's going to have access to these kids. It wasn't like that at all. The kids really came together as a team. But Mike Tyson was the second place guy, and so it was the first place guy and the second place guy of all.
Was that Tillman? Was Tillman first?
Yeah, Tillman was first in the small heavyweights, and in the super heavyweights it was Terrell Biggs and I think Craig Payne. But anyway, those amateurs, you fight in these single elimination tournaments, and wherever you go in, you don't stop until you either get beat or win the whole thing.
Right.
And it's a real test because you're like. Your fears, it's a complete challenge every time. Anybody that, wants to avoid this one or.
So why was Tyson down there? Was he?
Well, he was the alternate.
But he was going to go with Josephine, or
no. It didn't. Nobody. Okay. It was the Olympic team. Didn't have anything to do with being involved with Josephine.
She was just providing the area for them to stay. She was providing
that, and they gave her a lot of flack about it too.
Who stole her car at that time?
Oh, that was Big Hands Johnson.
Somebody stole her car.
Somebody stole the car. Because I remember they called their girl and they said, "Oh, I'm driving in a Benz," and they drove back. Somebody took it to Philly or something.
No, he got as far as McAlester, Oklahoma, when they and there's actually a penitentiary there that might still be there. But he showed up at the gym, and we had Carl Williams. Carl the Truth Williams was a hell of a fighter, and I had a crazy kid. God rest his soul. Carl was really something, and he but Carl was getting his hands wrapped, and Big Hands came in and tried to say something to him, and Carl kind of ignored him. Carl had a decent-sized ego, and so Big Hands got in the back in the dressing room, and I had just picked him up from the airport and, brought him down because Carl was going through sparring partners. This kid was from Baltimore, D.C. area and recently released. and he. But anyway, he got into it. Carl. He had a Bible. And he was angry that Carl hadn't acknowledged him, so he opened the Bible, and in it he had like a 7-inch knife, and he started talking about how he was going to do something to Carl, and I knew I had to get him out of there because either one of them getting hurt would have been a problem.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I got him out into the car, and I said, look, obviously this hadn't worked out, and but I'm going to take you, I'll give you something, and I'm take you to the airport, and so I'm thinking, I got to call and find out what the next flight is. This is before cell phones. And when I pulled up and went to the payphone, he jumped from the passenger side and this guy's like 6'6". I couldn't believe he levitated himself into the driver's side and took off in the Benz, which I was almost relieved. But yeah, he got as far as Oklahoma.
Gee, okay, so it was a car that you were driving that he did.
Yeah,
this
no,
time.
I was.
And then he just took off. All right, well,
that's crazy.
Hope it wasn't cold outside.
Yeah, I know. Well, and what was amazing when I was reading about that ranch area was just that whole organization, that HBA. Y'all were providing profit sharing, insurance. I mean, y'all were really providing for these boxers.
It was so different. I came kind of later, but they would have Josephine would have them go to cotillion classes. I mean, it's just really, a lot different than most other. Oh,
absolutely. It was pretty amazing when
an
I was
upscale boxing
that.
Environment like you have here at Savarese Fight Fit.
Yeah. Absolutely. Most definitely.
We were talking prior to the show, Bob and I, about how old gyms, and you had mentioned this before, where you're trying to mix new style gyms with the old style gyms that you guys grew up in, and I think that people like that here. And I mean, granted, this one's in Bel Air and a nicer part of Houston, but you still get the vibe of people actually nitty gritty fighting in here.
Well, that's the shtick, is because all our trainers are current fighters or were fighters, so it's great. I mean, these guys are legitimate, and it's good. I mean, we had that guy in today who's amazing. He came. Dominican Dynamite, Nagy Aguilera, he's a top 20 guy, really, really tough guy, and he's in here. I mean, it's cool for me to see these guys, it's just, it's really neat. We have another guy representing the UK in the Olympics, Craig Callahan, he's here, so we have a lot of legitimate guys.
Yeah, I think Craig was here a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, one of our trainers actually is now our new manager, Chase Corley. He just wrote a book called Muay Thai Grip, but he's the premier Muay Thai guy in the United States, and it's going to be made an Olympic sport. I think not this Olympics, but the next one, and he's going to be the coach for the Olympic team.
I was. I'm gonna go back to Spag. Spags? Spags. Okay, I'm gonna use that now. You said I could do it, so I'm gonna do that. Okay.
Never in my career as a talk show host or host of any show would I think that I would meet Bob Spagnola and be able to call him
Spags. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. You gave me that in, so I'm going to take it. Okay. Well, one of the things I was reading about with all the different boxes you've had, I mean, we were talking about when you first came in, your first, at least locally here in Houston, I saw one of your boxes that you've had is Alonzo Highsmith.
Oh, yeah.
Alonzo Highsmith. Football player.
Yeah. And I mean, he had some fights on him too. He's pretty good record.
Alonzo, for a short period of time he was in, he progressed. I mean, amazingly for a guy that he was just a sick athlete. I mean, he was amazing. He had a great jab. It just it was a lot of time to try and make up. But he had a huge win against Mark Gastineau.
Yeah.
He wrecked Gaston over in Tokyo. We hooked that up. But no, listen, Alonzo's father, Walter Highsmith, was a big fight fan. He used to come to the gym all the time.
Yeah.
And he said, geez, my son, we all knew about his son.
At TCU?
No, he was a coach at Texas Southern. He was
Texas Southern,
head coach
TSU.
at TSU.
Okay.
And but they'd come to the gym and support us and watch the kids. They were friends with Pi, and but he said, my son, he's gaining a lot of weight, and I want to bring him down. And he brought him down and introduced him to Potato Pie. And Pi was just a negative reinforcement. He'd try to run you out of the gym every day, and I was meathead. That was his.
Oh my God.
He had a name for all of us, and it was sometimes somewhat what
quick story.
related Lou.
What do you call Lou? What do you call Lou?
Lou Aparicio.
Yeah, he trained me for 4 years. He trained me for 4 years, and we were in Kutcher, the Jewish Alps up in New York, and we were training. And some lady said, "Who's that?" He goes, "Oh, that's my big old white boy, Lou Aparicio." I said, "What's my name?" Pi? He said, "Shut up and just keep training." No. Don't be trained. I got a good Pi story though. I brought this kid. He was a leg breaker. I mean, really tough kid. And from he was worked at tapas bars in New York, and all these mob guys were telling me, "Lou, you got to take this kid. He just knocks people out." I said, "Guys, it's a lot different than boxing." No, you don't understand. He crushes them, hits them, then down. I said, "Listen, it's a lot." They said, "Listen, just bring him down there, we'll pay." So they paid his way down here, and I had him stay on in one of the Forbes over in Maryland. He was staying there. Me, him, and another fighter, another one of Bob's fighters, Mohammed Abdin, the Syrian assassin. And we were in there, and Vinny trained for about probably 2 or 3 months, and Pi saw him, and Pi said, "Oh, shit, that's the Crusher. Yeah. So he come up with all kinds of names. You be old pretty eyes or something like that. So anyway.
You talking about me?
Yeah, you be old pretty eyes.
Fox face.
Yeah, he come up with something, but he just
Johnny
came up with all
Bravo.
his names. So he,
Johnny Bravo.
Anyway, he called him, the Crusher. So anyway, we had him down there. He trained for almost about 3 or 4 months. I told this story at Pi's funeral, so we had him trained down there for like 3 or 4 months. And anyway, so we go to the gym one day, and Pi said, "Oh, Crusher, what you doing?" He said, "Oh, I got a fight coming." "Who's you fighting, Crusher?" He said, "Oh, I don't know, Pi. Some guy down in Beaumont or whatever. He's 5'4", 190 pounds, and making his pro debut, 40 years old. What's his name?" He said, "I don't know, like Jose." "Oh, shit. You fighting old Killer Joe?" "Oh, be careful, Crusher. I love you, Crusher. Please be careful, Crusher." And Vinny's eyes got real big. I said, "Vin, man, you don't know what you're talking." "Oh, I'll kill him. Look at my arms. I'll kill him." I said, "Vin, don't worry. He don't even know who he is." "Oh, just be careful, Crusher. Be careful, please, Crusher." He said, "Pi, what are you talking about, Pi? He's 40 years old making his pro debut." He goes, "Oh, I know, Crusher. He was in the big house killing them cold as jugs." And Vinny's like, I said, "Vin, stop. You don't know who he's talking about." Anyway, so we go back that night. Me and Abdi were sleeping with supposed to be sleeping, and Vinny's fighting in 2 days, so the whole night he's like, "I'll kill that guy, right, Lou? I'll kill." I said, "Vin, stop."
He got to work.
23 inches, but I'll kill that guy. He's 5 foot. I said, "Vin, don't worry about it." "I know." Next morning he wakes up. He said, "I'm going to go take a run." I said, "Vin, the hard work's over. Don't run." I said, just relax. "No, I'm going to take a little run." Went, ran, got the hobby, and never came back.
What?
True story. I told that true story.
Oh,
and
my
Pi had
God.
no idea who the guy was, but got in his head so bad.
He didn't even know him?
No, Pi had no idea. He's like,
Oh, my
shit,
God.
old Killer Joe from Beaumont. Oh, boy can chuck. Oh, man, boy can chuck. Oh, not old Killer Joe. Oh,
He
man.
got worried, got on the airplane.
shit.
Oh,
Pi
true-
would
That
true
is
story.
fantastic.
He would
If he
test
saw weakness, oh, my God.
That is fantastic. I love that. That is awesome.
Hey,
But we had this other Syrian guy, nicest guy ever, but Pi would just abuse him. Look at him, he ain't gonna do nothing. Everybody wants the man to fight, but the man ain't gonna do shit. He ain't gonna do nothing. Ain't gonna do nothing. Oh no, ain't gonna do nothing.
That's fantastic. I love this.
I've got a question for you real quick, because you were were you in Lou's corner in the bow fight?
No.
in the
Well, like-
bullfight in the amateurs.
No.
Well, we had talked prior to the show when he fought Bo.
No, Lou fought Bo in the amateurs.
In the amateurs,
in
okay.
the,
Olympic trials. I was there.
Yeah.
I was
You were
out
there, so, yeah, you
Concord,
were-
California.
And you had mentioned to me verbatim, you're like, he beat the shit out of Bo. Because and you said that we,
I beat him. I did beat the shit out, but not. It wasn't fair. I was
They
fighting the dirtiest
started fouling.
Yes.
Bo hit Lou
It
in
was
the
like
back
the
of
three.
the head.
It was like the Three Stooges. I stepped on his neck.
and then
I
then
beat
it
him in
was
the
on.
nuts and I elbowed him. He was a way better fighter than me at the time.
He was a great fighter,
Yeah.
Riddick Bo.
Well, Lou has mentioned before, because everybody always asks Lou the same question, like who's the hardest hitter, and he's fought Tyson, Holyfield, Foreman, whatever, and he always says Bo was the hardest hitter
A lot of guys,
ever.
a lot of
that he
guys
ever
would
faced.
agree. I think Holyfield. A lot of guys will say Bo probably should have been the greatest fighter. He had some issues, but he could fight, man.
But he was a tremendous fighter, had the complete package, and I'll tell you something about him. He was clean. And all these other guys we're talking about,
They weren't. Yeah. Austin Trout-
all these other guys, they weren't.
Austin Trout brought that up on the show, and you know Austin very well. He brought that up on the show before about he's had even trouble nowadays with drug testing and stuff like that, and he's clean, and he's gone through trials and tribulations of that, and it's part of boxing, and we discussed this prior to, like, boxing is a you said, what did you say? Everybody's got a book.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's got a book.
Tyson is not. I don't think it's even. I mean, we know. I mean, he talked about doing coke before the fights. He was juicing. It was a known thing. Holyfield. And I love Holyfield.
Monster
but
juice head.
Holyfield had. You can look it up. Evan Field. He tricked him, and he had steroids delivered to his house, but it wasn't for Evander Holyfield. It was for Evan Field. I mean, really.
If you look at Holyfield just looks. I mean, you don't get like that just by
well,
doing some bench press.
Genetically, Evander was a beast genetically, but the point of the matter is that, listen, these guys are hurting each other. And, to me, I don't care if a guy rides a bicycle up the side of a mountain or if a guy hits the ball all the way to Alcatraz. I don't care about that. But when guys are hurting each other, and, in football and boxing, and look at these guys at MMA. I mean, you can just tell. You just tell
Which
looking
ones?
at them.
Sure.
They got a square head. Look at Canelo and the way his head. And, when guys... when they start having a hunk of meat grow off the side of their head at 37 years old, you can't imagine how powerful this stuff is. And it should be banned. They should be banned. Look at this kid that they just busted twice for it. And, he's probably going to get another chance. Aram signed him. And, the kid didn't know.
Who was that, Bob?
Miller.
Yeah. And
baby.
Then,
big
what's
baby.
His name? What's his name? Got caught a couple of times, too, the guy in the UFC. I mean,
they're
John
all
Paul,
monster
what's
juice
his name?
heads.
Yeah.
Paul, what was his name? The guy that, John Paul Jones. Was that his name? Jones?
Oh, John Jones.
John
I didn't
Jones.
know.
John Bones Jones.
John
That's the
Bones
UFC
Jones,
fighter.
yeah.
Yeah, he's been busted a few times.
Yeah, I know.
Like, and he always.
It's just it shouldn't be allowed.
You bring up a good point about how, because nobody looks at it like they're hurting each other. Like, you're looking out for the safety of the other individual. Other people just want to see a show. They just want to see somebody knock each other out, and you're looking at it like, damn.
But they're going to see that anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to enhance it to the point where it's. And listen, it's just not cricket,
No, and guys get bigger. If you get bigger, it's one thing. If you get bigger and stronger, but these guys, if you get something bigger and you move it faster, mass time velocity is power, and that's why guys are really hurting guys, and the same thing in
and
baseball.
your recovery,
You're,
this is a business of pain. We all know it. Every fighter that's ever gone in a fight goes in there with a sore rib or a elbow or a bad knuckle. It's all just part of. But when you're enhancing recovery, it's just huge.
Sure. Absolutely, 100%.
Welcome into Lights Out with Lou Savarese. We're over here with Bob Spagnola and
Grant, are you all natural?
What's that?
Are you all natural?
I'm all natural, brother.
Oh, good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
why
I know I'm intimidating. I know I'm
Why
intimidating.
you
but
ask me
yeah,
that?
no, we know.
That's what obvious.
You're hey, look,
That's just flat out rude.
You're in shape. You're in shape. It's a round shape, but you're in shape.
Oh, man.
We like it. We like it.
Golly,
Absolutely.
dude, I've got to get back in the gym and lose.
It's all good, man.
Lou's like, yeah, come train. I'm like, yeah, bro. I'm gonna need to jog
train
a
for
little
the
bit,
training.
a little bit
Yeah,
before.
absolutely.
I've been in shape my whole life. Just
Yeah, you can take a break. It's okay.
COVID, right? COVID.
Yeah, there you go. It's okay.
9/11.
Yeah,
9/11.
yeah, 9/11.
Everybody in New York is 9/11.
Well, I want to ask you, Spags. So tell you I'm gonna keep using that. What has been your goal when you started managing boxers and up through, like, what was your goal as far as what you were going to be doing for the boxers? Because you're talking about that as far as their health, and you're talking about the safety and the legitimacy of the boxing. What has been your goal when you started being a manager, and what have you hoped through your career that your boxers can say about you as far as your managing style?
I mean, listen, for one thing, to be in this business, some of the worst people that I've seen in this business are the ones that get up and start talking about honor and integrity. It's a dirty, tough business, and if you're not having it done to you, then you're doing it to the other guy, because we always do our best to take advantage for our side, and that's. But my whole thing was, I tell everybody, if you don't mean anything in your own hometown, you don't mean anything anywhere, and that's how a fighter gets to become somebody. Since we first started, I remember Frank Tate over at Texas Children's Hospital. Lou'd been down there. You build these guys into, solid members of the community. Make them, make them a hero. Make them and try to, just at that level, because people get behind a fighter. They're behind him his whole career, and the more people you got behind your fighter, the easier it is to do your job, because promoters want to use him because he brings people and he's positive. So that's the way that I oftentimes, just like with Lou's career, they accused me of building him up. He never fought anybody, and when are you going to see what you got? And I said, my thing is, look, I'm with this guy. I don't need to see what I got. If I got something that that I shouldn't have, that's on me, because I signed this guy up and made a commitment to him. But it's it's a risk-return business. So if you're getting your fighter in a position to fight for a lot of money, it's going to be a big step and a big risk. But you don't want to take a big step and a big risk for no money, just so some guy can claim that he made a great
One
match.
of the most angry I was at Bob ever was, I got so mad because for me it was a huge thing. I was going to get the Foreman fight. They were going to give me, I think, $250,000. Bob said, listen, don't take the fight. I said, you crazy? It would have been $10 million back then, And Bob said, don't do it. It's going to come back around. And I was like, no, I want to do it. I want to do it. And sure enough, Bob, he said, listen, I'm not doing it. Don't do it. And I didn't do it. And sure enough, we got the same fight, and I was ready for it. And it was double money, double the money. So it was good.
Why didn't you do it? Why didn't you want him to do it?
We weren't ready. We weren't ready, and they listen.
And every fighter always thinks he's ready. He should think he's ready.
That's
but
right.
it's really
Lou
matter-
would have fought
it's
a
matter-
buzzsaw. It not the fighter. You're supposed to. That's part of your job. To maneuver and to wait. And when people don't think much of somebody. You get even better opportunities, and we've found that over the years. And guys,
some guys get a loss, and it gives them more opportunities. When I lost to Izon, I actually got some. I got some fights that were better stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one thing on a funny note. I remember when I first moved down there, Bob had me join the Italian American Club, and it was so odd to me. They were like Bobby Joe Mendola. I was like, what the heck? What kind of Italian are these? It's like Billy Joe and Bobby. And they didn't know how to play bocce. There was a bocce tournament. They're like, anybody know how to play bocce? I'm like, are you kidding me? Jeez, it's crazy.
What was the nickname that I got to write this down, man?
Yeah.
What was your nickname that he gave you?
Who, me?
Yeah,
no,
Pi
that
gave
wasn't.
you?
It was
they
just
just
a
my name.
mispronunciation
Lou
of Lou's.
Savarese.
Oh, it wasn't even a nickname. He just
No,
mispronounced
But he
it.
had some good nicknames.
He had some great nicknames.
He called Old Big Head. Old Big Head. That was Old Big Head. Vinny was the Crusher.
Dumas.
Dumas, yeah. I don't know where he
Old
got it.
Pasquale.
Oh, man.
I was Meathead.
And he used to say the funniest things. He said, oh, shit. Jealous man can't work, can't make again. I said, what about oh, jealous man can't work? I said, why? He said, oh, jealous man can't work. He thinking old Jody back there hitting the old lady when he at work. He said, jealous man can't work. And I said, why can't scared man gamble? Oh, because he used to call his money the sweet jelly roll. He said, oh, he's scared of losing that sweet jelly roll. So every day he had his little pickup truck. Before he'd come in the gym, he'd empty out all the money, make sure nobody said, oh, I don't want none of these ground hounds asking me for money. He said, no, I ain't doing that. No, I ain't doing that.
That's
But
fantastic.
Pi would loud talk in front of everybody. When something wasn't right, he wouldn't take you to the
If he
side.
saw,
and
the best.
discuss it.
This is it. This is bad. So there's a guy. This is one of my favorite pie stars. There's a guy, and he was a guy. One of my chief sparring partners, great, in a big fight for Foreman. And the guy was talking to his buddy back in Houston. We were up in New York training for the fight, and he said, "What happened? What happened? She wearing what?" Anyway, Pi said, "What happened?" So it turns out that the guy, his girlfriend, he was dating way out of his league, and his buddy saw his girlfriend at Starbucks, and she was wearing a mini skirt, and he said, she says she going to school. She not going to school. I see everything. And he said, I said, come on, man, relax. He said, no. And then he said he had to go home, so I called Bob. I said, listen, you got to stop. Pi will not leave this guy alone. And he said, that thing going to stretch a mile before it tear an inch. And I said, I said, no, Pi, don't. And then I said, Pi, and then he was telling him, oh, don't you worry about it. He said, it's like putting money in the bank. And he said, what do you mean, Pi? What you mean? He said, you go home, you get a rule out. You're gonna have a little bit more than when you left with him. His eyes were getting so big, man. He was like, "Stop it, Pi." I'm like, "Pi." So I called Bob. I said, "Bob, man, you gotta stop Pi. This is our chief sponsor." I said, "Man, you stop him, man. You gotta tell him he's gonna make this kid go home." So Bob called him up and said, "Bye." I didn't say nothing. That old big old stupid mother. Oh, you didn't say nothing. stretch him out before tearing. Oh, I might have said that. Yeah, I might have said that. Anyway,
So, I can't believe. I mean, that's one of the two. Like the other one, he scared the dude to get on a plane and leave.
Yeah.
Oh no, no.
Like, I mean,
no. Well, he had this other guy getting ready to go home, and the guy said, "I said, why do you gotta go home?" He goes, "I go to train." I go, "What are you talking about? We're in training camp. What do you mean?" Because Pi was just making him
he
think
just
about it.
constantly like while you're trying to
If
spar.
he saw weakness, oh my goodness,
It was
He
on.
said,
But there was, the idle time. Here you're in a camp. So in the morning you're going to do your road work, and in the evening you're going to train. But it's all this, and time. Here you are building up for this combat. I tell everybody this boxing, it's insane. You're literally, they strip you mostly naked, and they put you up there for the whole world to see you fail. And most people a lot of people want to see you fail. Yeah. You've got some good hardcore supporters, but some people might be jealous. Maybe their girlfriend likes your abs, whatever it is. You're getting up there and you're putting it all on the line. And listen, the right thing doesn't happen all the time. And it's, and then, I saw you fight. You lost that. So yeah, but I tell everybody, you climb up those 3 little steps. There are no cowards in there.
No,
people say, that guy's scared.
I always took it to death. I was always ready. If I was truly ready to die in there, I would have, and that would have been, that's just the way I was. I wanted to win that fight at any cost. So
I've never heard a manager's perspective, and it's super interesting to hear.
Absolutely.
How
100%.
you talk about the fighters, and Lou's perspective as how he comes at it as a fighter. And how you come at it as a manager. It's amazing to see that dynamic of how that works, because I don't think a lot of people get that. And what you're saying is that, you strip, when you say strip emotionally naked, that's sort of like what Pi's doing. But I mean, they're taking you to wearing you down. Just where you have nothing but you left, and then you walk up those 3 steps, and it's just you in there. And like you said, the right thing doesn't always happen, but it's boxing. It's the most incredible sport as far as one-on-one is concerned.
And nobody goes undefeated in boxing, and nobody goes undefeated in life. And you're sitting there. These are real life lessons, only to the ultimate degree, because you're put up there, like I said, for the whole world to see you fail.
Right. That's incredible.
It takes a lot of.
Think how much money Pi saved everybody. Those wise guys up in New York that were going to foot the bill for the crusher. he went home, man. Never saw him again.
That is that story is awesome. We got time for a couple more. You got one more?
Well, no, I wanted to ask you about Jack Johnson. I know that I read a story, and for those of you that don't know, Jack Johnson, older fighter, like back in the early 1900s,
century,
30, like what, 30s, 40s? Was that kind of his?
1915, 1910, 1915.
Okay. He was a Texas boxing legend.
Galveston Giant.
Yep.
And was recently pardoned in 2018 for violation of the Mann Act. I kind of wanted to get your opinion of that story.
My wife tells the story of when I first met her, and I said, "Hey, I was trying to get her in a bathing suit," and I said, "Look, let's go down to Galveston." She said, "Galveston? What is it?" I said, "That's the home of Jack Johnson," and the Galveston Giant, Little Arthur. So listen, Johnson was just an incredible story. You couldn't. We could do a whole show about him. He had a dozen patents. He spoke several languages. He was a great fighter, and beyond that, it's just an incredible story of his getting to the throne, and obviously in a whole different time, and being the number one athlete in the world. Back then, they used to build a stadium that held 100,000 people just to have a fight in it. Yeah. And he was the champion of the world, and a Texan, Galvestonian, and some great history there. Great stuff.
They have a monument kind of too.
Yeah, they have several. Yeah. They have several depictions of Jack down there. One at the old Carver Old Central, original African American high school in Galveston. Behind that, they've got a bronze statue of Jack, and then there's a tree that didn't make it through Ike that they did a beautiful sculptor.
That's the one I went. That was cool.
Yeah, you got a couple of pictures. You've been down there, and you take a picture down there with Jack Johnson because of the statue. You told us that on episode 1 or
Claire, my daughter and I went down there. It was cool. I shadow boxed in front of it. It was really neat.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
If you don't know the story about Jack Johnson and his recent pardon, look at the Mann Act. It's crazy that it took till 2018 for that to happen. But I had read an article about that, and you had you were quoted several times in that article.
And
so.
Johnson, if you look at him, I mean, I tell a lot of people that come in here, I say, look at his physique. I have pictures of him. It was amazing. I mean, this is before weights, anything. I mean, the guy just, he's
a monster.
Oh,
Yeah.
We got a couple minutes left here on Lights Out with Lou Savarese. Quick question for you, my own question. What was your favorite fight that you ever watched?
The favorite fight that I've ever watched? It's a good question. I don't know that I have a favorite, but I...
one that you remember the most. That was
most memorable.
Yeah.
The most memorable fight the most brutal fight that I've ever been at right in the first row was Kid Akeem against Robert Quiroga for the IBF 115-pound world title in San Antonio.
115?
Whoa.
It was a two Bantam roosters just going at it with each other. One of them ended up never able to fight again.
That was Kid Akeem, right, Bob?
Kid Akeem, yeah, and he was favored to win the fight. And that Robert Quiroga, who was a victim of gang violence in San Antonio after his career was over with, what a performance. So both kids ended up in the hospital afterwards. They gave of themselves everything.
Kid Akeem was from Nigeria, right, Bob? It was a big.
I gotta find out who those kids were that fought. Did you watch the Tyson Roy Jones fight? Did you watch that?
I did.
Yeah,
The prelims to that, there was a fight. The first one that came on, there were two kids that were amazing. They went at it, and I thought that was almost more impressive than like every other fight. It was awesome.
Well, oftentimes, somebody steals the show on one of these big hyped up events, and Jimmy Birchfield, a dear friend of ours and a guy that promoted from Providence, Rhode Island, that promoted several of Lou's fights up in New England at the Foxwoods over the years. He was involved with that promotion, and those were his kids, those prelim fights.
Oh, man, those guys, there was two guys, they went at it, and it's amazing, and they put on a show, man. They really did. But speaking of putting on a show, we're at the end of ours. Bob, man, thank you so much for coming on. Like we could do this for another hour.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have at some point down the road. I'd love to have you back because I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that I mean wanted to get into that we just didn't have an opportunity to.
Didn't get into it at all. But Lou, thank you,
buddy.
Thank you, Savarese Fight Fit, and thank you guys for paying attention. Sorry we didn't get to all your questions, man. Thank y'all for watching the show. If you didn't catch it on live and you're just tuning in, catch it on the podcast. It'll be downloaded this evening. We're on. Just look up on anything. You can even talk
something
to Alexa.
monumental too.
What
Grant and I, we haven't said one thing about you.
No, we didn't.
You know,
no, I'm just saying. We went the whole time.
I knew it.
Thank you,
and
buddy.
I knew it, and I didn't want to say anything. No, you did.
We didn't say anything.
I mean, you called me fat for a little bit, but that's all.
No. But Lou even flirted with you a little bit. Said your eyes are pretty.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so Lou is even giving you compliments.
I get a compliment from Lou Savarese on the show. But hey, once again, thank y'all for watching Lights Out with Lou Savarese. We want to thank Bob Spagnola again for coming out. I'm Jeff Michael. This is Grant Miles. We will see you next Wednesday live at 8 p.m. See you, y'all.